He-Man immediately noticed something was off with the waiter. His hand holding the glass was shaking non-stop. There was no smile on his face at all. Instead, he was covered in cold sweat. The music playing in the room did nothing to ease the eerie atmosphere. The man sitting across from him tried to look relaxed and casual. He could feel danger closing in. He didn't hesitate for another second. He turned around and walked out right away. A flock of pigeons fluttered into the air in a panic, but before he could get far, the man was shot and fell to the ground. The man across from him was left completely stunned. This is how the story began. As the second in command of the intelligence agency, Mike never saw this coming. The boss he'd followed for years had resigned, and he was being forced to step down with him. We can see the complicated look in Mike's eyes. He felt a burning sense of resentment inside, but out of respect for his boss after all these years, he had no choice but to accept this unfair arrangement. The two top spies in the agency walked out in front of everyone watching. It was the boss who felt the most bitter about it all, because he knew, among the crowd staring at him just now, one of them was a mole from the circus. The reason the boss had to step down was because not long ago, he'd been given a top secret mission to root out the mole. The next day, at his home, he called in Tom, the leader of the operations team, and ordered Tom to find the mole. Dark clouds hung heavy in the sky. Tom met with his contact, only to realize he'd walked straight into a trap. The waiter's hand holding the glass made a faint rattling sound. Drops of sweat fell from his face onto the table. Suddenly, the world went completely silent. Slowly, the sounds around them came back. Tom finally snapped back to his senses. He jumped up, ready to run, but in the next second, he was shot and collapsed to the floor. This failed operation forced the head of the circus to resign. Not long after, he died of a sudden heart attack. The loss hit Mike hard. He'd stood by his boss for so many years. He also retired from his career as a spy and sank into a lonely, isolated life. Mike's life had entered an entirely new chapter, but he never expected his quiet retirement would be disrupted so soon. A British cabinet minister tracked him down and asked him to investigate the mole inside the circus. Mike brought in two of his most trusted men. One was Jack, the new leader of the operations team. The other was Bob, a security officer. The scene of the three of them sitting in a car, swatting at bees, looked surprisingly amusing. The first task of Mike's investigation team was to search the former boss's apartment. On the boss's desk, Mike found something, a list of names the boss had written down potential mole suspects. Tinker referred to Aline, the new head of the circus. Tailor was Tom, the man who'd been gunned down, and the last name on the list was Mike himself. Mike fell silent. He wasn't sure who the mole was, but he knew one thing: the mastermind pulling the mole strings was Carla, the head of the Soviet intelligence agency. Right now, the most suspicious person of all was Aline, the newly appointed boss. In front of the British cabinet ministers, Aline was riding high on his success and prestige. Could he really be the mole? That night, in the heart of the circus headquarters, a mysterious figure snuck in and stole top secret intelligence, then walked out of the building as casually as you please. Meanwhile, when Mike got home that same night, he found an unexpected guest waiting for him. Mike spotted a dagger lying on his desk. The guest was one of Jack's subordinates, a spoiled, privileged young man. He knew crucial information about the circus mole, which meant both sides, the good and the bad, wanted him dead. The reason this young man, Jim Prideaux, had come to Mike was to trade that intelligence for the safety of his lover. His lover was a Soviet woman named Irina. Last November, Jim had gone to Turkey on a mission, but he'd fallen in love with another man's wife. Jim had always been prone to falling head over heels in love, but this time, he was convinced it was true love. The two of them began a secret love affair. Irina knew Jim was a spy, so she promised to tell him the truth about the mole in the circus. Blinded by love and the promise of critical intel, Jim failed to see the danger lurking right beside him. Early the next morning, everyone involved in the affair was silenced. Jim rushed to call Irina, but it was too late. She'd already been taken away by the Russians. Once again, the mole had succeeded. After getting Jim's information, Mike pressed on with his mission to catch the mole. His mind was never focused on the present moment, always lost in secret plans and schemes. He ordered Jack, Jim's superior, to get him a certain confidential file. Jack immediately set out to carry out the task. Working together with Mendel, his inside contact, Jack found the perfect opportunity to swap the file. But no sooner had he finished the job than Jack was called into a room by his new boss. In that stifling, tense space, he was interrogated by Alaline, the new head of the circus. Alaline wanted to know where Jim was hiding. Jim was now trapped, hunted by both sides, with nowhere to run. When Jack returned to Mike, he found Jim, the man everyone was searching for. Mike deduced that the mole inside the circus had teamed up with Carla to orchestrate everything. Jack felt a twinge of annoyance toward Mike. It seemed like Mike didn't fully trust him, but Mike said to him, "If you knew what kind of man Carla was, you'd understand just how dangerous our enemy is." Mike gave Jack one final piece of advice: to take down Carla and the mole. He couldn't afford to have any emotional attachments, so Jack broke up with his partner without telling them a single word of the truth. That's the magic of this movie. It uses understated language to tell a story of unspeakable cruelty and betrayal. Jack tracked down another former colleague and got him to recount what had happened on the night Tom was shot in Budapest. On that day, the first person to rush to the scene was Bill, Tom's closest friend, who then took charge of the rescue and cleanup operation. In Bill's heart, Tom was more than just a friend. In fact, Tom hadn't died that day. Instead, he'd been secretly moved to a middle school, where he took a job as a linguistics teacher. Tom had finally found peace in his new life at the school. That was until Mike showed up. Tom told Mike about his experiences after being shot. He'd been interrogated and tortured for what felt like an eternity. He'd lost all sense of day and night. Unable to bear the pain any longer, he'd broken down and told them everything. Tom had watched as Irina was executed, though he hadn't known who she was at the time. He was then sent back to Britain with the help of Toby Esterhazy, a high-ranking official in the circus. He'd been able to hide out as a teacher at the school. The mole was one of these men. At this point, Mike turned all his attention to Toby Esterhazy. His code name was Poor Man, and that's when Mike finally pieced together the entire puzzle and reported his findings to the cabinet minister. Mike believed that Alaline's witchcraft operation, the so-called fake intelligence received from a Soviet insider, had actually been a trap set by the mole. So Mike devised an elaborate plan to catch him. A fighter jet landed behind them and charged straight toward the two men standing on the runway. The terrifying stunt scared Toby half to death. He spilled the entire truth about the witchcraft operation. From Toby's confession, Mike learned the location where the mole would make his next contact. Besides Toby, there were 3 other possible suspects. Mike then set a trap. He leaked false information to the top officials at the circus. Information that Carla desperately wanted the whereabouts of Jim. Mike made all the necessary preparations and waited for the mole to show up at the meeting point. Sure enough, the mole arrived right on schedule, standing just a few steps away from Jack. Who could it be? The mole was Tailor Bill, a man with impeccable charm and grace, Tom's best friend in the world. It was because of Bill's plea that Carla had spared Tom's life. In the end, Alaline was forced to step down in disgrace, and Tom personally pulled the trigger that ended Bill's life, the man he'd once loved. Jim would never see Irina again. Tom was left alone, drowning in memories of the past. Jack continued his work leading the operations team. Mike returned to the circus as its new leader, but he remained a lonely man, and his deadly game of cat and mouse with Carla was far from over.